The story of two princesses born into extraordinary privilege yet somehow destined to live in the shadows reveals one of the most fascinating and troubling dynamics within the British royal family, where bloodline alone has never guaranteed affection, acceptance, or even basic respect from the public that theoretically exists to celebrate them. Princess Eugenie and Princess Beatrice of York entered this world as granddaughters of Queen Elizabeth II, carrying titles that should have opened every door and earned them the adoration bestowed upon their cousins. Yet their reality became something entirely different, a decades-long experience of mockery, exclusion, and casual cruelty that raises uncomfortable questions about how Britain treats its royal women and what happens when you carry the wrong last name even within palace walls. Before we dive deeper into this compelling journey of resilience and reinvention, make sure you subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell so you never miss our coverage of the stories behind the palace walls that mainstream media often overlooks. Drop a comment below telling us what you think about how these princesses have been treated, and share this video with anyone fascinated by the real human stories behind royal headlines. Your engagement helps us continue bringing you this exclusive content, so let's build this community together. Born in 1988 and 1990 respectively, Beatrice and Eugenie arrived during a period when their father Prince Andrew still enjoyed his status as the Queen's favorite son, a decorated military veteran from the Falklands War who seemingly could do no wrong in his mother's eyes. Their mother Sarah Ferguson, the vibrant red-headed Duchess of York, initially captured public imagination with her energetic personality and apparent normalcy, offering a refreshing contrast to the stiff formality that characterized much of royal life. For a brief moment, it seemed these little girls might enjoy the best of both worlds, royal privilege without the crushing expectations placed upon direct heirs to the throne, freedom to develop their own identities while still basking in the glow of their grandmother's crown. That honeymoon period shattered spectacularly when their parents' marriage collapsed in spectacular fashion throughout the early 90s, with Sarah Ferguson's behavior providing tabloid fodder that British newspapers devoured with gleeful viciousness. The infamous photographs of the Duchess having her toes sucked by her financial advisor while vacationing in the south of France became seared into public consciousness, transforming her overnight from charmingly unconventional to scandalously inappropriate, and her daughters inherited the stain of that humiliation despite being mere children completely uninvolved in adult marital failures. British public opinion, already prone to harsh judgments of royal women who step outside narrowly defined acceptable behavior, turned decisively against Sarah Ferguson, and by extension, against her daughters who became forever associated with their mother's perceived sins. The mockery intensified as Eugenie and Beatrice grew into young women navigating the impossible terrain of public adolescence under relentless media scrutiny. Their fashion choices became national punchlines, with British tabloids dedicating entire spreads to ridiculing their outfits, their hairstyles, their weight, and every aspect of their physical appearance with a cruelty that would be considered bullying if directed at anyone without a title. The most infamous incident came at Prince William and Catherine Middleton's wedding in 2011, when Beatrice wore a distinctive Philip Tracy fascinator that instantly became an internet meme, mocked mercilessly across social media platforms and traditional news outlets alike. While royal watchers might analyze fashion choices of other royals with gentle criticism or constructive commentary, the York princesses faced something uglier, a gleeful pile-on that seemed to derive pleasure from tearing down young women who had committed no actual offense beyond existing in the public eye. This treatment reveals troubling patterns within how British society consumes royal content and projects its complicated feelings about class, privilege, and deservingness onto individuals who never chose their circumstances. Eugenie and Beatrice occupied an uncomfortable middle ground, too royal to escape scrutiny and expectation, yet not royal enough to receive the protection and favorable coverage lavished upon William and Harry or even their cousins Zara and Peter Phillips who, despite being Princess Anne's children and equally royal by blood, somehow escaped comparable levels of viciousness perhaps because they lacked royal titles and therefore seemed more relatable or less threatening to British democratic sensibilities. The dynamic within the extended royal family itself appeared to reinforce this marginalization, with the York princesses often excluded from major events or relegated to positions of minimal visibility during public ceremonies. While this partly reflected legitimate protocol concerns about streamlining the monarchy and focusing public attention on direct heirs, it also suggested deeper currents of family tension and perhaps embarrassment about the Andrew connection. Their father's reputation underwent its own catastrophic decline, particularly following his disastrous association with convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein and the subsequent allegations made against him by Virginia Giuffre, which Andrew has consistently denied but which destroyed whatever remaining public goodwill he possessed and effectively ended his working royal career in 2019 following an extraordinarily damaging BBC interview that became instantly infamous for his inability to show empathy, his implausible explanations, and his apparent tone deafness about the severity of the accusations swirling around him. Eugenie and Beatrice found themselves trapped in their father's expanding scandal, guilty by association in the court of public opinion despite having no involvement whatsoever in his adult decisions and relationships. The British press and social media commentators frequently questioned whether they should retain their royal titles, whether they deserved their security details, whether taxpayers should fund any aspect of their lives, arguments that rarely emerged with similar intensity regarding other non-working royals who happened to have parents with cleaner reputations. This represented a form of inherited punishment, children paying indefinitely for paternal failures in a society that claims to judge individuals on their own merits. Yet throughout these decades of marginalization and mockery, both princesses demonstrated remarkable resilience and determination to forge meaningful lives outside the suffocating expectations and limitations of their royal status. Eugenie pursued a career in the contemporary art world, working for auction houses and galleries in London, building professional credibility entirely separate from her title while maintaining a relatively low profile that stood in stark contrast to the tabloid caricatures painted of her in earlier years. Beatrice similarly pursued professional opportunities, working in business and technology sectors, completing her education, and refusing to accept that her worth should be defined entirely by her position within the line of succession or her father's catastrophic choices. Their personal lives, marriages, and growing families have begun shifting public perception somewhat, with both sisters receiving noticeably warmer coverage in recent years as they welcomed children and demonstrated the stable family lives that earlier critics claimed they would never achieve. Eugenie married Jack Brooksbank in 2018 at Windsor Castle in a ceremony that, while not achieving the global spectacle of William and Harry's weddings, nonetheless offered glimpses of a genuine, loving relationship and a family rallying around daughters who had endured so much undeserved criticism. Beatrice's surprise wedding to Edoardo Mapelli-Mazzi during the pandemic in 2020 similarly revealed a woman prioritizing authentic connection over royal pageantry, adapting to circumstances with grace that contradicted every negative stereotype ever projected onto her. The broader context of their experience illuminates uncomfortable truths about British royal culture and the specific burdens placed upon women within this system, where appearance matters more than accomplishment, where maternal behavior determines daughterly worth, and where public opinion can turn viciously against individuals who never asked for their positions and possess limited ability to escape them. Eugenie and Beatrice represent casualties of a system that simultaneously demands perfection from its royal women while providing them with insufficient support, protection, or pathways toward genuine fulfillment outside their symbolic roles. Their story also highlights the evolving nature of modern monarchy and questions about which royals deserve public support, titles, and privileges in an era of increasing scrutiny regarding the value and relevance of hereditary institutions. The slimmed-down monarchy that King Charles has long advocated suggests even less space for peripheral royals like the York sisters, potentially condemning future generations to similar marginalization where they possess just enough royal connection to attract criticism but insufficient centrality to command respect or resources. Looking at where Eugenie and Beatrice stand today, having survived decades of mockery that might have broken less resilient individuals, having built careers and families despite operating under constant judgment, having maintained apparently close relationships with their controversial father while navigating the impossible politics of public opinion, we see two women who perhaps understand better than most the true cost of being royal without being royal enough, of carrying a famous name that opens some doors while slamming others permanently shut, of living in a goldfish bowl where every perceived flaw gets magnified while genuine accomplishments receive minimal acknowledgement. Their journey from those little girls photographed with their grandmother at Balmoral to the professional women, wives, and mothers they are today reflects both personal triumph and systemic failure, individual strength confronting institutional indifference, and human beings insisting on their worth despite a society determined to diminish them. Given everything these sisters have endured throughout their lives simply because of who their parents are and the family they were born into, do you think British society owes Princess Eugenie and Princess Beatrice an apology for decades of disproportionate cruelty, or is intense scrutiny simply the unavoidable price of royal privilege regardless of personal merit?